What if a simple bouquet of roses could turn your entire world upside down? Imagine opening your door to a familiar face, someone younger, unexpected, holding flowers and a smile that carried far more than kindness. One neighborly gesture quickly became something I couldn't ignore, a spark I never thought I'd feel again. Tonight, I'm sharing the moment when an ordinary day collided with the extraordinary, and how a single comment from a neighbor left me questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. Hi everyone, I'm Jessica, the storyteller on the Adult Women's Tales channel. Here, I'll share stories about love, conflicts, betrayal, and infidelity within families. These stories offer a deep look into relationships and the challenges families face. Stay tuned and explore with me. If you love emotional stories and want to uncover the hidden secrets in families, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our videos. Before I start, I'd like to know, where are you tuning in from this evening? Are you snuggled up in your warm abode in Dallas? Perhaps listening in from the misty avenues of Seattle? Maybe you're tuning in from a peaceful small town like mine, where the biggest thrill comes when the mail shows up as scheduled. What occurred to me, it took place in a serene setting much like that, and it still leaves me breathless when I reflect on it. Here's what went down. It was early spring, the sort where everything remains moist and the mornings arrive with a refreshing chill in the air. I had just returned from sweeping the porch. The sound of brushing away the dead leaves brings me a sense of calm, especially when I hear a knock on the door. I didn't anticipate anyone showing up. As I opened it, there he stood. Andy, the neighbor's son, had outgrown the title of boy. He had recently reached the age of 25, I believe. He was tall and strong, exuding a natural confidence that stemmed from his hands-on experience. I was aware that he had been assisting with construction projects. Brenda, his mother, would go on and on about him until she relocated a few months ago. She mentioned that she left the house to him. He needs to take charge of his own path now. It was evident that he was indeed doing just that. Standing proudly on my porch with a bouquet of soft pink roses held in one hand and that radiant smile. It had been ages since I had witnessed a smile like that. "Hi, Miss Laura," he said, his eyes sparkling as if he held a hidden truth. "These are meant for you." I stared at the flowers in disbelief. "Is this for me? What's the reason for the celebration?" He gave a lopsided smile and shrugged. "Is it necessary for me to have one?" I chuckled. Actually, that's not the case, but it's quite rare for a charming young man to appear at my door with roses. He said they reminded him of you, and his voice lowered slightly, a gentle quality that drew my gaze from the petals to his eyes. A moment of silence ensued, one of those lengthy moments where the quiet hums a bit too intensely in your ears. Unsure of how to respond, I moved aside and pointed toward the hallway. "Step inside. I will place them in water." He trailed behind me into the room, the sound of his boots thudding against the floorboards. I found myself looking back repeatedly as I approached the kitchen, acutely conscious of the eerie silence enveloping the house. So devoid, so quiet. Since my husband passed away 3 years ago, the house has embraced a lingering silence filled with sorrow. I maintained a neat space, brewed tea during the afternoons, and did my best to overlook how the days blended into one another. My son came to visit whenever he had the chance, but he resided 2 states away. On most evenings, it was simply me, an engaging book, and the constant buzz of the refrigerator. Andy's presence transformed everything. He occupied the area as sunlight filters through window coverings. He rested against the counter while I searched for a vase. I sensed his gaze upon me, not in a threatening manner, but with a focus that suggested I was truly worth his attention. That was unfamiliar to me. "Your hair looks great like that," he remarked unexpectedly, gesturing toward the loose bun I had styled earlier, sort of graceful. I grinned, somewhat taken aback. "You're incredibly delightful today. Perhaps I've always had a certain allure and you simply haven't seen it. That brought a smile to my face once more, but it wasn't solely the phrasing. It was how he expressed them, deliberate and thoughtful, as if he were probing for something more profound than casual conversation. I arranged the roses in the vase, cut the stems and mixed in a bit of sugar with the water. My hands were steady, yet my heart, not really. As I spun around, I noticed he was nearer than I had recalled. Give me some space, simply close. He had the scent of clean linens and cedar. His shirt fit snugly around his arms, with the sleeves rolled just below the elbows. In that moment, he appeared older than 25, or perhaps I simply felt more youthful. "I've been wanting to have a word with you," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. His gaze fell for a moment, not to my chest as one might expect, but to my hands. The very hands that had comforted infants, assisted my husband, and wiped away years of dust and dishes. He regarded them as if they were significant. "What is it about?" I inquired, attempting to keep it casual, yet I felt a nervous flutter in my stomach. He raised his gaze. Something lurked behind them, something that left my throat parched. "Regarding my emotions when I'm in your presence," I held my breath. I was unable to move, as if every part of me had turned to ice. I ought to have let it go. Chuckled. Possibly made a mistake. However, the manner in which he expressed it, devoid of arrogance and bravado, indicated that it wasn't merely a fleeting infatuation. It was sincere, unfiltered, frightening indeed. "I realize this sounds odd," he said hastily, as if he could sense the whirlwind of my thoughts. "I don't want to put you in an awkward position. I simply had to express it." I reclined against the sink. I held tightly to the edge. When my voice finally emerged, it was gentle, convenient. "You don't need to say a word," he interrupted. "I was just thinking about this, concerning you, for some time now." My heart pounded, strong and resonant. I had reached the age of 66. I bore crow's feet and silver strands, with a history inscribed in every part of my being. And there stood this young man, someone I had observed from afar as he grew, gazing at me as if I still held some value worth carrying. It was absolutely frightening and exhilarating and incredibly perplexing. "What's the reason for this moment?" I inquired, my voice just a soft murmur. He smiled, gentle and warm, not arrogant. "Because I finally found the courage, and since I brought you flowers today. It's not only the way your smile lights up my day, but also how you turn this street into a place that feels like home. Desire for something greater." Once more, there was that moment of silence. However, this time, I chose not to fill it. I allowed it to linger between us, heavy with potential. He took a step back. I ought to leave. I never intended to create any awkwardness. With that, he pivoted and made his way to the door. I remained motionless, with roses at my back, their fragrance rich and heavy in the atmosphere. Before he opened the door, he glanced back one last time and uttered the words that completely took my breath away. "Consider it for a moment. All right." And just like that, he disappeared. There I stood in the kitchen, heart racing, breath quickening, questioning how a mere bouquet of flowers could alter everything I believed about myself. The flowers remained on the counter throughout the night. I left them as they were, untouched and unaltered, not even adding water, although I did see that one of the petals had begun to wilt slightly by morning. Each time I walked by, I would stop for a moment. My hand hovered close to the vase, then pulled back, as if making contact would somehow solidify last night's events, or worse, erase the possibility of pretending it never occurred. I simply rested. Andy's face kept flashing in my mind as he spoke those words. "Consider it for a moment." All right. It resonated in my mind like a melody you murmur absent-mindedly. I found myself pondering it more than I intended to, More than was necessary, I reflected on how he gazed at me, not out of pity or flattery, but with a genuine sense of respect, as if I were something unique, something truly acknowledged. That morning, I donned my robe, brewed some tea, and carried it out to the porch. The very porch I had cleaned just yesterday, the same worn wooden planks I had walked on for years. It felt different this time, as if I was anticipating something or someone, and I despised that I was. I didn't spot him that day. By the time I looked at the driveway, his truck was already gone. Silence reigns, devoid of engine roars or the clatter of tools in the garage. Perhaps he experienced a sense of embarrassment. Perhaps he came to understand his words and felt remorse. Perhaps, and this hurt, perhaps it was merely a passing whim that held greater significance for me than it did for him. On the second day, the discomfort evolved into a vague sense of unease. I decided to bake. In moments of confusion, I turned to baking, specifically banana bread, the type featuring rich, dark chocolate pieces and a touch of cinnamon. My husband used to refer to it as my pondering loaf. It filled the house with an aroma that felt substantial, something you could rely on. It felt as though I maintained control over everything. I had just taken it out of the oven when I heard the knock. It was gentle, uncertain. I took my time. I allowed the seconds to stretch as I removed the oven mitt and adjusted my blouse. I took the time to dress nicely that morning and headed towards the door. There he stood, Andy. This time, no flowers, no grin, just him, hands tucked away, gaze probing into mine as if he feared the discovery that awaited. "I was hoping we could have a conversation," he remarked. I paused for a moment, then moved aside once more. "Step inside." He advanced cautiously this time, mindful, as if the ground could give way beneath him. I made us some tea without checking first. He accepted it in silence. We were seated opposite one another at the kitchen table, steam rising in the space between us. We remained silent for some time. He was the one to shatter the quiet first. I also didn't get much sleep. I glanced upward. His eyes were weary yet bright. He was serious. This was neither a fleeting crush nor a mere daydream. This felt more substantial. "I regret saying what I said," he continued. "Not that I didn't intend it. I truly meant every word, but I threw it at you unexpectedly. That was unjust." I wrapped my hands around my cup. "Nothing was dropped, Andy. You spoke the truth. That requires bravery." He blinked, taken aback. "So you're not upset?" "No," I stated, perplexed. "Absolutely." "Shocked?" "Absolutely." "However, upset?" "Negative." His shoulders eased just a little, but I noticed it. "I reflected deeply on your words and how they resonated with me." He leaned in slightly, anticipating. I experienced a mix of flattery and fear, followed by another wave of flattery. "It's been ages since anyone has gazed at me like you do. I am still a woman. I'm more than just a mother, a widow, or a neighbor." You brought back a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. He gulped, his lips separating just a bit. "That's precisely it. You remained a woman, Laura." My breath hitched in my throat. The way he uttered my name, not as Miss Laura or ma'am, but simply Laura, as if it was his to claim in that instant. He remarked on your beauty, not in a glossy format, in an authentic manner. The beauty found in the way you tilt your head while laughing, the manner in which you fold towels, or the soft hum that escapes when you believe no one is around to hear. A sensation broke free within me, perhaps a dam, one I was unaware I had created. I glanced down, my eyes fluttering rapidly. "Do you realize how much time has passed since anyone paid attention to those things?" I whispered. He extended his hand cautiously, as if seeking consent with his fingertips before they made contact with mine. And when they did, Warm and steady, it felt as if every nerve in my hand ignited. He mentioned that he notices. We lingered in that moment, fingertips grazing, breaths light. Silence speaks volumes for a moment. After that, I withdrew. "Andy, this isn't going to be straightforward." "I'm not looking for easy," he responded. "I'm seeking sincerity. I understand that the world may not comprehend it. Honestly, I know there are folks who criticize me from every angle, but their opinions have never mattered to me. I genuinely care about you." I got up and made my way to the window, my arms firmly crossed over my chest. "You are youthful. The future is full of possibilities for you. I have already experienced a full life." He rose as well, moving to stand next to me, and that existence shaped who you are. Are you aware of the depth of wisdom and grace that resides within you? Do you really believe I want someone my age who is still searching for their identity? I recognize you, and I truly respect that. I pivoted to confront him, mere inches separating us. "This could alter everything," I remarked. "I'm relying on it," he responded. No kiss occurred. Not at this moment. Only quiet, pressure, an unvoiced vow lingering in the air that separates us. He held back. He did not plead. He smiled gently, with a calm demeanor, then departed, saying, "I'll see you soon." As I observed him departing, an odd realization struck me. After a long time, I craved visibility. I sought a person who would pose the inquiries that others were too afraid to tackle, to awaken the calm within me. What about Andy? He had just accomplished that with a handful of flowers and some sincere words. And the bravery to come to my door. The week that followed seemed like existing in two distinct realms. In one, I remained Laura, the woman who cut coupons from the newspaper, tended to her hydrangeas at twilight, and created lists before going to the store. In the other, I was entirely different. Another person. A woman who rose each day feeling a thrill beneath her skin, pondering whether today would be the day she would see him, questioning whether what was unfolding was truly occurring or merely a stunning illusion destined to vanish the instant reality cast its gaze. Andy didn't show up immediately once more. He allowed me some distance, duration. However, he didn't vanish. He sent a message, just a brief one. "Can't stop thinking about you. Hope your tea packed a punch today." I gazed at those words for a time I'd rather not confess. The attention in them, the softness, how peculiar and how beautiful. It was nice to be considered. I took my time to respond. I was at a loss for words, yet I smiled, and I maintained that smile for most of the evening, even as the tea turned cold and silence returned. 2 days passed before I encountered him once more. I took a stroll around the block, a habit I've picked up lately to keep my legs active and my mind clear. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over everything, while the air was filled with the sweet essence of late spring, inviting you to stay a bit longer before retreating indoors. As I rounded the corner heading back home, I caught sight of him. In the driveway, he wiped his hands with a rag, a toolbox lying open next to him. His shirt bore streaks of grease, and he was humming a tune I couldn't place. He faced away. I ought to have just continued on my way, or at the very least given a wave and headed indoors. However, I chose to halt. He felt my presence before laying eyes on me. I observed that he did quite a bit. He turned his head just a bit at first, then completely, and when our eyes locked, that same well-known smile appeared on his face. "Good evening," he remarked. "Vehicle issues. It's not a problem, just giving her a little adjustment," he indicated towards the open hood. "She may be aged, yet she remains dependable." I let out a laugh. "That rings a bell." He inclined his head. Did I just roast myself? Perhaps. I took a moment to stop. Perhaps today I'm feeling bold. Andy cleaned his hands, threw the rag into the box, and moved in closer. Your bravery is admirable. I kept my gaze steady. I've been reflecting as well. Absolutely, I nodded. Concerning you, concerning this, concerning its potential significance. He lingered. I'm still feeling scared, I confessed. Yet, I find myself intrigued. A glimmer ignited in his gaze. Laura, just having conversations with you is more than enough for me. I simply desire moments spent with you, to understand you. The genuineness in his voice was soothing, consistent. Cozy, are you available tomorrow? He inquired. I lifted an eyebrow. Are you inviting me out on a date? He smiled broadly. If that's what you want to call it. I had coffee on my mind, or a stroll along the lakeside. Just simple. I paused for a moment, then gave a nod. Okay. Next day. And so it was that the following afternoon, I stood before my closet, reminiscent of my teenage years, fretting over my outfit choices. I think I tried on about 5 different outfits, excessively informal, not casual enough, way too outdated, overexerting oneself. In the end, I chose a soft blue blouse that highlighted the gray in my eyes, paired with slacks that fit perfectly. I even styled my hair a bit and put on a touch of lipstick. Gazing into the mirror, an unfamiliar sensation began to awaken within me. Thrill. He arrived to get me at 3. It had been years since I was chosen for anything. This time, he arrived without flowers, only a timid smile and a compliment that made my cheeks flush. We cruised in his truck, windows rolled down, soft music playing, something mellow and easy, and chatted as if it was second nature to us. By the lake, we discovered a serene bench nestled under towering trees, with the water sparkling in the sunlight. Families were enjoying their time outside. Ducks waddled along the edge of the water. A few teenagers were tossing stones into the water from afar. We were seated near each other, yet there was no physical contact, and our conversation flowed. Regarding his profession, his aspirations of launching his own enterprise in the future, he reflected on his mother, the deep longing he felt for her, and her constant encouragement to follow his instincts. He inquired about my husband. I was caught off guard by that. How was he? Andy inquired softly. I gazed at the lake, calm, gentle, amusing when he felt like it. We enjoyed a fulfilling life. It's not flawless, but it's decent. Are you thinking about him? Every day I spoke truthfully, though not quite as I once did. Initially, I felt the absence of his presence. Then I longed for the routine. I longed for the sense of being understood. Andy remained silent for a considerable time. He reached over, and this time he took my hand. I stayed right there. You should be recognized once more, he stated, not for your past role in someone else's life, but for the person you are at this moment. I blinked rapidly, the impact of those words sinking in more profoundly than I had anticipated. Returned the squeeze of his hand. We lingered in that moment until the sun started to lower, and as we rose to return to the truck, he faced me, his demeanor solemn. He mentioned that he didn't want to hurry you. I understand this isn't easy, but I truly meant what I expressed earlier. I have arrived. If you're interested in delving into this, whatever it may be, I nodded deliberately. I'm not sure what it is at this moment, but I'm eager to discover it. Then, softly and without haste, he leaned in and placed a kiss on my cheek. Right there, gentle, cozy, just enough to make my skin tingle. It was the initial sensation of something different, and as we headed home, windows rolled down once more, wind in my hair, I recognized something I hadn't allowed myself to experience in quite a while. Optimism. As I walked back into the house that evening, it had a different vibe. The air remained unchanged, the familiar creak of the hallway floor still present, the lavender scent from the diffuser in the corner still wafting softly through the rooms. Yet everything seemed imbued with a gentler essence, as if the walls had absorbed a day alongside me and were patiently anticipating my next move. I placed my purse on the counter, removed my shoes, and made my way into the kitchen at a leisurely pace. The roses on the counter had finally begun to wilt, the petals curling at the edges, their soft pink hue now a muted blush. I didn't get rid of them, not at this moment. I just wasn't prepared to part ways with them, not when they had been the initial indication of something stirring to life. I lingered at the table, gazing into the void, allowing the soft buzz of the refrigerator and the echo of Andy's voice to envelop the stillness. He had left me with that familiar smile, the kind that made me feel both secure and flustered simultaneously, and said, "I'll call you tomorrow. Unless I get restless, then I'll just appear with coffee." I had laughed, but now, after some time had passed, it no longer felt amusing. It felt reassuring. It felt as though he was carefully laying out a trail for me, inviting me to follow if I chose to do so, not compelling me, not forcing. Simply unlocking the entrance. I've spent a long time living my life in silence. Following my husband's passing, the thought of another man never crossed my mind. Not in a serious way. I had persuaded myself that a chapter of my life had come to an end. I had my moment, my true love, and now it was time to quietly step back into the shadows. Perhaps I had come to terms with it, or perhaps I simply acclimated to the solitude. But at this moment, I found myself in a state of delightful unease. I absent-mindedly brushed my fingers against my neck, recalling the way Andy gazed at me from across the lake. Not driven by desire, not youthful, yet brimming with a profound essence. He didn't perceive a woman beyond her peak. He noticed me, every part of me. He faced it all without fear. The following days unfolded in a peculiar cadence. He held back. We exchanged messages occasionally, joyful and reflective notes that brought a smile to my face with every notification. One morning, I discovered a note affixed to my mailbox. "Your presence enhances the charm of the neighborhood. I wanted to bring this to your attention." Meh. I had never received anything like that before, not even my husband at his best. I stood there with it in my hands, the paper dancing gently in the wind, my heart pounding more than it ought to have. After that, we started spending more time together, strolls through the park, an intimate dinner on his back patio where he cooked steaks, and we shared laughter over a bottle of wine. Initially, it progressed at a sluggish pace. Be cautious. Yet underneath, something was developing, cozy, confidence, yearning. Then arrived the night when everything transformed. It was a Thursday. I prepared shepherd's pie, the meal my husband always asked for on his birthday, and I invited Andy to join us. He arrived ahead of time, wearing a cozy grey Henley and jeans, with a bottle of wine in hand and a charmingly crooked smile. "You continue to nourish me," he stated. "I'm planning to find reasons to drop by every evening. Who said I would care about that?" I responded before I had a chance to hold back. He stopped, looking at me, his face becoming gentler. "You would not." I glanced back at the kitchen, but not before he caught the smile I couldn't conceal. We had a meal. We had a conversation. We found it hilarious, particularly when he let his fork slip and acted as if the wine was affecting him. Once the dishes were cleared away, we settled onto the couch, sipping the remnants of the bottle, the television flickering in the background, but going unnoticed. "I enjoy being here," he said softly. "Your presence here is appreciated." He extended his hand toward mine once more. He approached it with care, never making assumptions, and I allowed it to happen. Our fingers intertwined as if they were familiar with this dance from countless moments past. A stillness enveloped the air, so profound it echoed in my ears as I sensed his gaze upon me. I turned my head to lock eyes with him, "May I kiss you?" he inquired, his voice scarcely above a whisper. I gave a nod, and when his lips met mine, it wasn't an inferno, it wasn't chaos. The water was deep, serene, expansive, and enveloping in a manner I hadn't realized I longed for. We eased away gradually. I caressed his face, followed the contour of his jaw, and grinned. "Are you really scared of what this is?" He nodded in disapproval. "No, I've never been more sure of anything." He left before the night came. We hadn't arrived at that point yet. As he departed, gently pressing another kiss to my forehead at the threshold, I realized we had crossed a boundary, silently, with respect, completely. The following morning, I gazed at my reflection in the mirror. Not the mirror I typically steered clear of, not the one that brought to mind the years gone by and blurred lines, but the mirror in the hallway, the one where I would check my lipstick before heading to church. And I encountered someone new, not due to my youth, but because I had come back to my true self. This wasn't a tale of a boy pursuing something off limits. This story revolves around two individuals from distinct generations, yet bound by a genuine connection, something unforeseen, and curiously enough, it all made perfect sense in its own unique manner. Handy failed to save me. He reminded me that my journey was far from over, and that gift was more exquisite than any arrangement of blooms. The roses eventually faded and were discarded, yet their memory lingered on. With each look, each moment of quiet, each gentle touch of his hand on mine, what began as an unexpected arrival had transformed into something I never imagined I would experience once more. I received a second chance, and I found the courage to embrace it. That's it for today's story. If you found it moving, don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.